All right. All right. So we're about to start Ages and Stages, the final chapter. Let me turn some of this off. I am getting some reverb. There we go. All right. Okay. Hello, 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 party people. Welcome to Ages and Stages, the podcast. I am Rashid, your host. It's been a minute. It's been a minute since we talked. And I wanted to do this last closing finale of our financial recovery series to close out the year. So me and Mark, Mr. Haywood, I'm going to be bringing on shortly. We've been trying to get together to finish this out, and I want to be a man of my word and bring this final episode. Who's been helping me talk through. Hello. We'll let some people come in. Talk through financial recovery for myself and anybody else who wants to listen and hear what he has to say, and also be a reflection of him to me and vice versa, and what I've been going through and using him personally. So many of you know, what kind of brought this on, dealing with some financial troubles and struggles that have followed me that I couldn't escape, that I could not run from any longer. And it affected my relationships, my friendships, my business, peace of mind, and everything else in between. But it's a new day and things are looking up and we're working towards those things. And I'm here and happy to report that we're moving in the right direction. So I wanted to bring Mark on to kind of give his closing remarks and talk about some of the things that he suggested that I implement, and those that are listening and trying to learn. You didn't have to have any necessarily financial struggles or pains or missteps. This is also to help strengthen the knowledge of finances in our community and stretch those things and be able to share those with your family, loved ones, and create a lineage of financial literacy going forward. And you don't have to, take a large fall than to have to get up. You can already be where you're at and start moving in the right direction. So with all that being said, thank you guys for joining. Thank you for clicking on. I know this was kind of a impromptu last minute, but let's bring in my man, Mark. Mark, Mr. Haywood, how are you, sir? Oh, I got you muted. My bad. I'm sorry. How are you, sir?
I'm quite well. Mic check 1 2 1 2. How are you?
Yeah, we're in there. Mic check. Turn my mic up. Yeah, I got you.
Turn my headphones up.
Yeah. Mark, man, thank you so much, man, for joining me again. This is our fourth installment of the financial recovery series that you agreed to do with me. If you don't know, if you're just tuning in, ladies and gentlemen, this is Mr. S. Mark Haywood. He is a financial advisor for Northwestern Mutual. I've known this brother for a long time, and he's been in this business just as long as I've known him. And one thing about me, I always like to empower people with their skill set. And one of the things that I've learned in sales and just growth, know what you don't know. And I know I don't know these things, but when I see somebody such as yourself who's been in this profession, not a year, not 2, not 3, not 4, but 10 plus. How many years you been in the business now?
11 years now.
11 years. You got to be doing something right? You're still in business. So I like to fall back and listen to those who can guide me. And, it's never too late. So thank you so much for joining us. You've been giving us some great financial gems. And for those of you who have not seen the previous episodes, please go back to those things. It's not just helping me, it's helping a multitude of people. And when I decided to do this, if I say that I'm gonna benefit from it, but anybody else who can jump on and do so. So Mark, thank you once again for joining us. Thank you for taking the time. I know it's been hard. We've been trying to get on each other's schedule, but you're a busy man, and I thank you again for joining us, brother.
Oh, not a problem. It's a blessing to be here, and it's a blessing for me to be a blessing to others. So I appreciate you allowing me to be here. Off rip.
Well, thank you, man. This time, this is the closing finale. So the other times, it was a little more formal. Now I'm a little relaxed this time. I'm gonna have me a slight adult beverage.
Not a problem. I'll be sipping water, but that's fine.
Okay. So anyway, man, again, Mark, thank you so much for joining us. Financial advisor for Northwestern Mutual. So let's go ahead and get into it, man, and then we'll have some questions and
Okay.
towards the end that people may ask, and then we'll just kind of go from there, brother. But tonight is not going to be as formal. It's just going to be kind of, from what I understand, but I'll let you lead it. So let's go ahead and get into what you have for us.
Okay, no problem. So as a quick well, actually, before we dive into the quick summary, so again, I want to share with everybody a couple ground rules. Number one, we do approach this from a primarily I would say African American or Black perspective. We love everybody, but we definitely want to make sure we take care of the people that are close to home, our family, so to speak. So it's not to say we won't reach everybody. It's just that we have a specific focus. So that's number one. And also number two, I always share with people. The only reason why I'm here is because Rashid invited me. So please subscribe, review, share, like, if they to borrow a phrase from Bomani Jones, give them 5 stars. If you only give them 4 stars, I'm inclined to believe you are a hater. So definitely make sure that you support him, since he's doing this in order to support the community. All right. So that being said, let's dive into a review. So if you follow our previous chats up to this point, today is part 4. If I were to summarize the first 3 parts, they were as follows. Part 1 was really about controlling the controllables. All right. Controlling the controllables. So there's a lot of things in this world that we cannot control. We cannot control if we are hired today, fired tomorrow. We can't control if we're healthy today, healthy tomorrow, to a certain extent anyway. We can't even control to a certain degree if we're here today, gone tomorrow, right? But what we can do is we can control what we do with the dollars that come into our pockets that we work for on a month-to-month, check-to-check basis, right? So the first thing that we focused on was, how do you manage your cash flows, both the money that's coming in as well as what you're paying out. So a lot of what we spent the very first thing talking about, matter of fact, I'll even share this a little bit so you can kind of see it. This will blow up. All right. So one of the first things we talked about was how you can manage your cash flows and your monthly budget, right? And we'll dig into that a little bit more shortly. The second thing we focused on in our second conversation was, how do you protect yourself against the unexpected? How do you protect yourself against the unexpected? One of the things that I share with people all the time is that, unfortunately, we do live in a fallen world where bad things happen to good people, right? So we know that there are certain things that are going to happen to you over the course of time. What are those things that are guaranteed to happen? You are going to get old. You're going to get less healthy. You are eventually going to pass away. Those are those things that we know are going to happen. You're going to get old. You're going to get less healthy. You're eventually going to pass away. So how do we develop strategies around those things to protect you in the event that, or when the event occurs that those things happen, right? So how do we protect yourself? How do we protect your family? How do we protect your legacy? So that's part 2. And then part 3 is, once we've checked off the boxes on 1 and 2, how do we plan for the good times, so to speak? How do we plan for the good times? So how do we save? How do we invest? How do we put dollars away strategically, short, medium, and long term, so that you can accomplish whatever your future goals are, whatever those goals might be? It might be, hey, want to retire comfortably. I want to pay off debt. I want to, invest in this business. I want to make sure my kids go to college, et cetera, et cetera. So those would be the 3 things that we'll touch on this evening, and also make sure that we do it in such a way to where it will even check in on, how Rashid has been progressing as we've been going through these modules. So again, how do we manage your inflows and outflows? By managing your budget. Number 2, how do we protect against the unexpected? By making sure that we have the adequate strategies in place. And then number 3, how do we save and invest for the future? Planning for those times that go right, once we plan for those times that might go wrong. So that's a quick summary of what got us here. Yeah, Rashid, let me turn it over to you. Questions, comments, concerns, let's fire away. And also, by the way, for anybody that's watching, please feel free to chime in the comments if you have a question that you want to address as we're going through our conversation.
Right. Yeah, we're going to answer some questions tonight. So again, I thank you for that, kind of summarizing all that we've done, and just to, how did we get here? Most people know that I shared with a lot of people, the world, that what transgressions that I had financially and how it affected not only my life but the life of others and the life of someone I was in a relationship with, and trying to better myself to help better the overall human I am, and to help develop others out there who may be going through the same things and maybe don't know when to say enough. Enough is enough. To pull the cord, to start over from scratch, and be okay with the outcome, right? So even though my outcome wasn't favorable, I still have a child to raise and I still have a life to live. So for that, people, it's never, I wanted people to know you're never alone. You're never by yourself, even though you feel like you are. You feel like you're on an island. And I've been there, trust me. And sometimes you still feel that way. But for the countless men and women who have reached out saying that they valued what I said and gone through, that they've gone through it, or they know people have gone through it, or they want to now challenge themselves not to go down that path, and also to help, as again, educate their kids. So again, through the pain comes the glory. Through the pain comes restoration. And that's where we're at now. And so I appreciate you again. I don't want to get long-winded. But again, so that's how we got here on my end. So let's get into it, brother. What do you have for us for tonight?
Okay, sure. So let's start off with the very first thing that we talked about, which was managing your inflows and your outflows. So I figured I would use one slide per topic to kind of give a grand overview of everything, right? So one of the things that we talked about was the best way to manage your budget is to basically split it in three. You know, one of the things we talked about was how what was his name? Oh man, all of a sudden it's escaping me. The gentleman from Shark Tank, the dude that invented Fubu. Damon John. I'm sorry. I don't know why his name is escaping me. All right. So one of the things that Damon John said is that, you know, you need to have three things that you do with your dollars. He said, you know, $1 is what you have to pay. $1 is what you want to do. And then the other dollar is for something that you want to invest in or save for in the future. Right. So there's what you have to do, what you want to do, and then what you plan for in the future. And that's kind of what this slide is talking about. Right. So there's what you have to do. You know, no more than 60% of your budget should be going towards your essential expenses, your rent or your mortgage, your utilities, your car note. Maybe you're throwing some student loans in there, et cetera, et cetera. So those things that you have to pay in order to just make it on a month-to-month basis. Typically, that should be no more than half of your budget to the extent possible, right? Then there's that second dollar. That second dollar is, you know, what you want to have fun with. So that's, you know, your discretionary expenses, or 20% of your budget. That's, you know, hey, I want to go to this happy hour, or hey, I want to enjoy this nice dinner, or hey, I want to enjoy this trip, or hey, I want to go buy this item of clothing or this luxury good or something like that, right? Yeah. And then that third dollar is what you are planning for the future. That's your saving and your investing. That's, you know, the money that you're putting away into that savings account, that emergency fund, that fund that you're planning for investments. That could be your retirement account, that could be your kids' college account, et cetera, et cetera. So again, right, you want to make sure that you have three things that you're doing with your resources. Again, what you have to do, what you want to do, and then what you're planning for the future.
Now let me ask you this: is there another segment for emotional spending?
Define emotional spending.
So, right, so you know, oftentimes, again, I'm going to be an open book. A lot of times people, or let me say, when you work hard and you've done so, let's say you've had a great week or a great month, because me and being in sales, I live my life a month to month at a time. Like it's wild and crazy. I live my life is based off each month, because every month, like the first was that Friday? I start from scratch. I start all the way over, 100% commissions. And that's that hustle, but I love the grind and the hustle. But at the same time, sometimes I get caught up in, man, I had a great week. I had a good month. Let me reward myself. Let me go buy this. Let me go buy this. Or people that have a negative, like, dang, I'm down. I need this to help me. But that is still taking away from the overall goal of the budget. So that's things that I've had to govern myself with, good or bad, with the emotional side of things. Because as Shannon Sharp always said, when emotions are high, logic is low.
Right.
So with that, would you put that in a discretionary income portion, or is that just more of a discipline side of things with your finances and your income? When you don't really have it, but it makes you feel better, and you say, "Well, I deserved it, I earned it," but did you really? You know, does that make sense?
That's a great question. And I would say the answer to your question is it's all of the above. It's both discipline and what you plan for, right? The beautiful part about these percentages is that no matter whether your income is high or low, the percentages don't change. The dollar value does, right? So to your point, let's say if on average you're making $1,000, let's go what you were saying. Let's go per week, right? If you're making $1,000 per week, this is saying, okay, take $600. That's what you put towards your bills, your rent, mortgage, utilities, et cetera, et cetera. Take $200, and that's what you have fun with. Take $200, that's what you invest. So that $200, that's your fun money for the week. I tell everybody all the time, I don't care what you do with that $200 that you made from your 1,000. I don't care if you go to happy hour. I don't care if you drink it away. I don't care if you party it away. I don't care if you, shop it away, et cetera, et cetera. But no, $200, that's your mark. Now, whether you spend that over the course of the entire weekend or in a singular day, that 200 is what you have to work with until the next week when you get to the next 200.
So even if you make 10,000 a week, 6,000 has to go.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just the same percentage. Like you said, the dollar amount may change, but the percentages don't.
But the percentages don't. That's right. So to that point, okay, hey, I had a really great month. So you know what? Now, to your point, I made $10,000. Okay, so I put away $6,000. Now I actually get to have fun with $2,000. Now, whether that $2,000 is me treating myself to dinner, or you know what? Now I can afford that trip that I was going to take a few months out. Let me go ahead and buy my plane tickets. Let me go ahead and pay for my hotel in advance, et cetera, et cetera. The percentages don't change. It's just the dollar value. And if you learn to operate in that regard, whether you're, living high on the hog or, low on the hog, you'll always be disciplined about spending the same proportion of your dollars that you should on a week to week, month to month, quarter to quarter, year to year basis.
Got it. Okay. Yeah.
Yep.
Just want to expound on that a little bit for myself and the viewers.
Now let me help you out. Also,
am I supposed to be showing something else? I'm sorry to cut you off.
No, you're good. Okay. So the other thing that I would say is if 60% goes towards your essential expenses, 20% goes towards your fun money or your discretionary expenses, 20% goes to your saving and investing, right? As a part of that saving and investing, you can say, you know what? One of my funds is my slush fund. This is I'm going to put a little bit away month to month, so that I can have extra fun when, time allows for it. Or if the month is a little bit lower than what I've anticipated, I can draw from that. So that way, if you have, like you said, a $10,000 month, you may not blow through $2,000 in a weekend. So you might say, okay, you know what? I'll have fun with 1,000, but I'll take this extra 1,000 and I'll put that towards my saving and investing slush fund. And then it happens when there's a month, to your point, I have a month that's low. Maybe I only made $500 that month. You know what? I may need to pull from that extra slush fund just to make sure that I meet my obligations. But if my obligations are met, okay, that is my opportunity to draw from that to have a little bit more fun than I would otherwise. So you want to be able to build in your cushion all along the way, so to speak. So that way you're not overextending or underextending yourself at any given time. You're kind of building in some flexibility along the way.
Yeah. And then also with that, you talked about, I can't remember which episode it was, but you talked about actually coming up with a full detailed budget. So out of what that monthly or weekly, whatever you have, what you have to do. And
absolutely.
And to be honest, I over the last couple years, I've been told and advised to do it. And, would start it and wouldn't finish, or put it off and started, wouldn't finish, and had, friends and family and loved ones help me do it, but would do it, but not complete the task. And then it took for me, unfortunately, to get to rock bottom, so to speak, to realize the value and point of that, because you can never know how to allocate funds if you don't know exactly what's coming out. Right. So I say that to people listening. And a lot of times we do that because of fear of seeing actually how much. How many times we get paralysis by analysis because we this I don't really want to see it, or I don't want to do this, or I don't want to go do that, or I don't want to get on the scale because I don't want to see how much I weigh. I don't want to, stuff like that. We run from it. But the best thing that I've learned over these last few months is just to run to it, because hell, it's gonna hurt regardless. So I might as well get it, get it out the way. So I can't remember what episode you brought that up on, but that's been huge. And I have been doing that as of late. And it's really helping me sharpen my focus and be more aware of, the overall process.
Yeah, absolutely. And that was episode 1 because, if I didn't say it then, I'll say it now. One of the things that I've come across in my time in this industry and just time of self-development and whatnot, I recall there was this gentleman that said, if you always do what's easy, life gets hard. But if you choose to start with what's hard, life gets easy. Do what's hard first, right? A lot of times we find ourselves trying to do what's easy in order to delay the pain, not realizing that all we're doing is stacking up far more delayed pain than we needed to. Where if we just dealt with the facts, the figures, and the slight discomfort now, it makes it way easier for us to operate on the back end. So, yeah, my challenge to everybody that's listening is don't run from it, lean into it. The more you can understand what your numbers are, the more that you can take corrective steps from there. Absolutely. And by the way, and this is a slight pivot still related to our conversation, which is that a lot of what we've talked about up to this point has been how do we identify the outflows. We also want to find ways to turn our outflows into inflows, or let me say it another way. It's one thing to have liabilities. You have those debts, those things that you need to pay on a regular basis. How do you find opportunities to turn those liabilities into assets? And I know that's a lot of what we've been working on together. For example, Rashid. So, to kind of give some transparency there. So, for example, there's certain things that we just have to pay. We've got to pay the rent/mortgage, right? We've got to pay the car notes. Share with the people, if you could, a little bit about how we've talked about how you've been able to take those liabilities, which we know we just have to pay, and kind of flip those and turn those into things that pay us, if you don't mind.
Yeah, no, sure. Through your guidance and just kind of looking at the overall picture of where my life is at currently and trying to get out of what I need to as fast as possible is, like you said, turn liabilities into assets. And so what I've done is I've Airbnb'd out my home, and I've also Turo'd both of my vehicles. So if people don't know what Turo is, it's the same thing basically as Airbnb. So those get rented for service. So I've turned cars that are depreciating assets. And the reason why I've done that is because, as we talked about, it's not just as simple as me, just go sell them. Just go trade them in or do that. Because as we all know, or most people know, cars are depreciating assets, right? And when you try to buy them right, there's possibilities for that, but it's very small. And me being a professional, I'm still not perfect. Professional in the car business, and I purchased a vehicle primarily that was losing value, and I couldn't get out of it, and it was just like a snowball. And I'm just paying it, robbing Peter, pay pop, 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 so forth and so on. But I found a way to turn it into an asset. So both my cars are on Turo, being rented out. It's going crazy, and then my home is Airbnb. So it's been a couple months now, and it's been good, man. It's been good because you see the light at the end of the tunnel, and those were my primary hardships and distractions, which couldn't allow me to build to the other things I needed in my life because I had to take care of that. So,
Right.
Yeah. So I appreciate you, man, for putting that out on paper for me and letting us look at the analytics, the budget, my mortgage versus my car notes, and the incomes that come in and the streaming, the continuing of it. And then it's been good, man. It's been good. So with that, some other things that we talked about, going grocery shopping, taking my lunch to work, doing all that stuff now. So it's been rewarding, man, challenging to a certain extent. But it's also been kind of like I've been there before. Like, you know what I'm saying? It's kind of one of those things. It's humbling, but also it's rewarding when my son sees the hard work that I'm putting in.
Right.
And just the other day, he was in the car with my mom. My mom came and picked him up from my house. I'm cleaning up because I don't hire a cleaning crew because that's extra money. Because a lot of people, you hire the cleaning crew. I clean the home myself. And he got in the car. My mom told me later, my son told my mom, man, daddy worked so hard. Like, bro, I broke down and just broke down because I'm trying to keep him shielded from everything. Like his life is normal. He doesn't know nothing. You know, he's good. But, you know, he knows that daddy's working on the house and does da. And sometimes, so it's been rewarding to a certain extent, man. But,
Oh yeah. Yeah, and definitely I appreciate you sharing that moment of transparency and also sharing with us what your journey has been, because again, it's one thing for us to give tips or give information. It's another thing for us to be able to show other people how it's now materializing in application, so to speak.
right.
So
And it's so crazy because, we raise our children and, for the most part, we want, or most everybody wants their children to have more than what they did. And then, it's a fine line because I'm looking at my 10-year-old. I'm like, this little Negro ain't gonna, he don't, we've had maids before. Like he don't know how to make it. I taught him stuff like that. He don't know how to wash dishes yet. He know how to load a dishwasher. He know how to sweep, mop, vacuum, none of that. And me going to grandma's house, we had to do all that.
right.
All that. Like what? You ain't going outside, you ain't doing nothing. So it's also become a teachable moment for him. So now I'm teaching him how to mop, teaching him how to sweep, teaching him how to vacuum. Because you might not be able to afford a maid. You might not be able to afford, or the times that you may need to do it yourself, you need to have that that type of independent skill set for when you go off to college or know. So it's actually, that's what I'm saying. The rewarding side of it, he's learning these manual labor things that sometimes we get caught up. I know he needed to learn them, and you always feel like I'm gonna teach him that. But you just get caught up in the hustle and the bustle, just pay somebody to do it. So that's the pleasing part of it, man.
Absolutely. So so now we can transition. So we talked about the first module, which was how do we manage the inflows and outflows. So then we said, okay, once you start managing the inflows and outflows, how do you plan for when things might go wrong, right? We hope things don't go wrong. I'll say it that way, right? We're not wishing ill on anybody, but everybody that is listening to us right now, I guarantee somebody that experienced an unexpected death in the family, or experienced an unexpected layoff, or experienced an unexpected illness, or experienced a unexpected, disability or something of that nature, right? Again, we live in a fallen world, bad things happen to good people. So we always talk about how do you plan for the future, understanding that things might happen that are beyond your control right here and now, such as experiencing that accident or injury, or getting sick, or dying too early, or losing that job, et cetera, et cetera. So it is very important that as you plan, you also have to plan for the worst case scenario. Not that you're trying to be a, focus on the negative, or not that you're trying to be a Debbie Downer or stuff like that. Right. It's just that, hey, you know what? Every now and then, even if things are going well, sometimes the budget gets tight. Or even though things are going well, you blow out a tire. Or even though things are going well, you know what? That AC at your house goes out. Stuff like that just pops up. Sometimes it's our stuff. Sometimes it's ourselves, right? So how do we plan for that?
Wow. I like that. Wow.
Absolutely.
And so sometimes it's ourselves.
Sometimes our stuff, sometimes it's ourselves. So I always say that everybody needs to make sure that they have a robust insurance plan. All right. Everybody wants to or needs to have a robust insurance plan. Some of these stuff are mandated by law, right? You have to have car insurance, for example. Sure. There's a lot of mortgage companies that won't even give you a mortgage if you don't have homeowners insurance. So a lot of times we are already incentivized to insure our stuff. So that's the good part. Law will usually push you to do that. Unfortunately, the law doesn't always push you to insure yourself. So, for example, one of the things I challenge people, understand your health insurance and the benefits that you have through your job. Understand the life insurance that they provide you. Understand the disability insurance they provide you. And even above and beyond what you have through your job, well, let's just call it what it is. Post-pandemic, so post-2020 and the breakout of coronavirus and stuff like that, you know what life has shown us? We can't fully rely on our jobs. We just can't, because they will lay you off in a minute. They will fire you in a minute, or they will change your benefits in a minute because, and this is what I always share with my clients, your job is only going to do for you to the extent that it is cost effective for them, not where it's to the utmost benefit for you. I'm going to say that one more time. Your job is always going to do what's most cost effective for them, not necessarily what's of the utmost benefit for you. So they're going to do the bare minimum that costs them the bare expense in order to keep you on the hook. And that's it. They're not oftentimes not going to do any more than that, right? So knowing that, I encourage my clients. Number one, it's good to have the life insurance, for example, that you have through your job. Make sure that you've got some life insurance outside of your job. It's good to have the disability coverage. So if you get ill or injured, they usually cover 50 to 60% of your income. But I don't know about you, Rashid, but most of the people that I know can't survive on half of their income. Like if they woke up the next day and their income got cut in half like that, they would not be able to make it month to month, right?
Sure. I think that's I saw a study where that's, I don't know, over 70 or 75% of the population of the country.
Right. Well, I believe that statistic was talking about how they're literally one check away from poverty.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about, because most people cannot deal with a disruption to their recurring monthly cash flow. So if there's a chance, by the way, just to be clear, you're actually 2 to 3 times more likely to have something medical prevent you from working than you are even to die. So you're 2 to 3 times more likely to get disabled than you are to even pass away. So that means that if you become disabled, guess what? If you're unable to work, you're still a mouth to feed with far less income to go with it, right? So to the extent possible, have an outside disability plan. If you are older and you're approaching retirement, then maybe disability coverage is not what you need to look into, but long-term care insurance coverage is what you need to look into. Why do I bring this up? Because let's just call it what it is. We're living in a society where people are getting older, but not necessarily healthier, right?
Yes.
And quite frankly, medical expenses, particularly if you have to go into a nursing home, assisted living facility, adult daycare, or something like that, that can obliterate your retirement income far faster than anything else could. Far faster than, quite frankly, even a dip in the stock market, right? So I always tell everybody, make sure that you have your outside life insurance. Make sure you have your outside disability insurance. If you're older, make sure that you have your outside long-term care insurance, because you want to protect your earning potential. That's with the life insurance. You want to protect your working income. That's the disability insurance. And you want to protect your retirement income. That's the long-term care insurance. So I wanted to pause there for a second. Again, just to talk about, you want to make sure you have a robust insurance plan outside of your employer. What they give you at the employer is good. That's free, by and large. Take what they give you, it's free. But you want to build something outside of there, because we don't want to fully rely on the employer. So I want to turn that over to you real quick, see if you have any thoughts, questions, comments, concerns, or anything you want to interject about that.
No, that's great stuff. We kind of talked about that in one of the episodes. And then that's more so with the life insurance. If you do go, when you do go, having something left for our children and for them to be able to sustain the life that they had when you were here. And that's been big. So that's one of the things that I've always, I see, it's levels to this, it's levels to life and levels to learning and levels to your knowledge, right? It's levels to the financial security side of things and financial literacy, because those aspects I've known for years, because I saw my grandparents do it and my parents do it, and I was married to an insurance agent. So I joke all the time and tell people I'm worth way more dead than I am alive. And because I've got so much of that from years ago. And then now the fact that I have gone back to work for someone, I do have the benefits of the medical, which is much cheaper, because I was paying as an entrepreneur my own, out of pocket insurance. So now it's a lot more feasible. But on the top, on top of that, I still have other layers of protection, like you talked about, outside of your job, because I've been, an entrepreneur, and I've worked for these companies, and I left. Because once you leave your job, if you go for a promotion, or if you go to start your own business, what happens to your insurance? What happens to the money and the 401k and the things of that nature that you put in and they contributed to, and the life insurance that you've left with your beneficiaries for your employer if you leave?
Yeah, absolutely. And let me dovetail off of what you just said. Here's one thing that a lot of people don't realize. I brought this up in our second seminar series, but I'll bring it up again right now. So Blake DeForest, he's a gentleman who used to be the Secretary of State for the state of New Jersey. And one of the things that he said is that we are on the verge of the greatest wealth transfer that has ever happened in the history of society. That's United States, Canada, Mexico, Asia, Europe, et cetera, et cetera. We're on the verge of the greatest wealth transfer that has ever happened. And he said, and unfortunately, most of the Black community won't participate in it simply because we didn't buy life insurance. Simply because we didn't buy life insurance. Because it's not just that people built up a whole bunch of money that was going to pass on to the next generation. It's because they had a whole bunch of insurance policies that are going to cut checks to the next generation, right? So you want to make sure that you have those plans in place. And let me also share this with people. I tell people all the time, if you remember nothing else about insurance, always remember this. The government loves insurance because it keeps you from relying on them. I'm going to say that one more time. Wow. The government loves insurance because it keeps you from relying on them. Insurance plans are one of the few things that you can pay into on a month-to-month, quarter-to-quarter, year-to-year basis. And when you have to pull those benefits, oftentimes, now I'll say oftentimes, not all the time, but oftentimes, those benefits are 100% tax-free. And here are the examples I get, right? So, Rashid, let me give you an example. You've probably had to go get an annual checkup, or you've gotten sick and you've gone to the doctor, and you may have had to pay a copay, but they probably gave you some medicines, and you had to utilize your insurance to pay for the bulk of that. So you've probably either gone to get a checkup, or you've gone to, for some reason, and insurance covered most of the costs, right?
Facts. Yes.
Okay. Now, let me ask you a question. After you've gone to the doctor, have you ever seen a tax bill from the IRS?
No.
Right. And why? Because the government loves insurance. It just kept you from relying on them. By utilizing your health insurance, it kept you from relying on Medicare and Medicaid, right? So usually what you pay for your insurance, so when you pull those benefits, technically speaking, that's a windfall of cash to you. Now, if you know anything about the tax code, anytime you get a windfall of cash on your behalf, that's usually a taxable event. They want to figure out some way to tax
you. Coming for you. Uncle Sam knocking.
Right. But they didn't tax you on your health insurance. Why?
Right.
Because you relied on your insurance, not on the government's insurance. So because of that, they don't tax you on that. Let me give you another example. You have car insurance, right? You get into a car accident, you had to get your car fixed, maybe you got into a little fender bender. Well, insurance is going to cut a check so you can either go get your car fixed, so they'll cut the check to you so you can get it fixed, or, you take it to a shop and they pay the shop to get your car fixed. Again, that's a windfall of cash. Did you receive an IRS bill in, your mail because you got your car fixed?
Nope.
No, because it's insurance. The government loves insurance because it just kept you from relying on them. So I tend to tell people insurance is one of the most powerful vehicles that you can utilize as a strategic asset in your planning that will help you take care of yourself in case everything goes wrong, but also make sure you don't have to pay a tax bill in case anything goes wrong. So again, the government loves insurance. It keeps you from relying on them. Insurance does not have to be a bad word. It can be a great word if you know how to strategically use it in your favor. Whether, again, we're talking about life insurance, disability insurance, long-term care insurance. We talked earlier about property and casualty insurance, your homeowner's insurance, your car insurance, et cetera, et cetera. So again, y'all, insurance is not a bad thing. You need to have it working in your favor in case anything goes wrong. And by the way, it also comes with a benefit of usually those benefits are not a taxable event to you, other things equal.
Right. And it just lived our children in such an advantage. You talk about in that study where the Black community probably won't participate in this transfer of wealth. Think about our counterparts that are doing this, and their children are able to loan off of that or take that to be independent, to start their own companies, to start their own businesses, to create. They tap into those things versus having to get a GoFundMe to put mom and dad in the ground. You know what I'm saying? That's up to us.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
It's so powerful. Man, you brought up some great points about the government and the tax. I never thought of it about that way. You got my mind like that's wild when you put it in those terms. That's pretty interesting, and it makes a ton of sense.
Absolutely. I'm very big on finding ways to utilize the tax code in our favor. Wealthy people do it, but the thing is, there are so many aspects of the tax code that I would say us regular folks can tap into that we just don't think about. Insurance just happens to be the one of the ways we can do it.
Got it. All right.
So that was the second module. So then we'll transition to the next one. And our third module was really about investing for the future, right? How do you put money away that's going to work for you? Now, there is no one size fits all to this aspect, but some key takeaways from our last conversation were as follows. Number one, you want to develop an investment program that takes your personal goals into account, right? That takes your personal goals into account. The first thing that you need to ask yourself is, what am I putting this money away for? All right. What am I putting this money away for? Is it for retirement? Is it for my kids' college? Is it to invest in a business? Is it to take that nice vacation? Is it to pay for this wedding? Is it to insert blank here, right? So
Right.
the first thing that you need to do is identify what is the personal goal attached to this money that you want to put away. I share with everybody all the time that often when we engage in conversations, I spend a good chunk of our time, or at least more than at least half of our initial conversation, just try to understand what they want to accomplish both personally and professionally. And I say I want to understand what they want to accomplish personally and professionally because if we understand what they want to accomplish personally and professionally, we can then tie in the financial steps to get them there. Because my thinking is, if what you're doing financially is not actually getting to your personal and life goals, then we need to question what you're doing, why you're doing it, or if you even should be doing it at all. It's great to have a whole bunch of money in the bank, but if that money in the bank is not allowing you to do what you want to do with that money, is it really benefiting you, right? You can have a whole bunch of money tied up in your 401k. That's great if you're planning for the future. But if your thought is, yeah, it's great to plan for the future, but I need to buy this house in the next 6 months to a year, does all your money need to be tied up in your 401k? You see what I mean? So again, you want to first start off with the end in mind. What am I going to spend this money on? That takes into account the personal goals. The next thing, risk tolerance. You need to have an idea of how much up or down you can stomach in order to build your money up along the way. There are some people that are like, hey, I don't care how much the money is going up and down along the way. It's perfectly fine. There are some people that are like, yeah, I can only deal with this much up and down. So I kind of want to keep it as level as possible. Right. You really need to get an understanding of that. And also understand that if we're tying this to your personal goals, right? There are some goals that you're willing to take a lot of risk with. There are some goals you're willing to take only a little bit of risk with, right? So you need to understand what your tolerance for up and downs are. Time frame. There are certain goals that are short term. There are certain goals that are medium term. There are certain goals that are long term, right? The planning that I'm going to do to send a kid to college in the next 5 years is going to be completely different from the planning that I'm going to do for somebody who's going to retire in the next 25 years. So you want to understand how soon or how long away will I need this money, right? And based on that, if you understand your personal goals, what you're going to spend the money on, if you understand your risk tolerance, how much up and down I could stomach to do that, and you understand your time frame, how long or how short it might be before I reach this money, you can then develop the investment options around that. You know, longer term, do I need to look at retirement accounts, 401ks, IRAs, 403bs if you are in a nonprofit sector, 457 if you're in the government sector, or, you know, Roth IRAs if I'm talking about the personal side of things, et cetera. You know, if it's more medium term things, okay, I have a kid that's going to go to college in the next 5, 10, 15 years. Do I need to look at 5 to 29 plans or Coverdell savings accounts? Hey, you know what? I may want to invest in this business, and I know it's probably going to take me 5 to 7 years to really get there, to capitalize on it. Okay, do I need to look into my brokerage accounts? Do I need to look into my advisory accounts? Things like that. Hey, you know what? I'm probably going to pull the trigger and I need a down payment on this house in the next 6 months. Okay, does it make sense for us to just look at a 6-month CD or a just outright cash savings account or something? Or maybe you just need to put the money underneath the mattress and put it in your safe if you think you might spend it, right? So you want to have, as I say, different buckets you can touch at different times for different reasons. I'll say it again. You want to have different buckets you can touch at different times for different reasons. So let me pause. Questions, comments, concerns, please feel free to share whatever's
if
on your mind.
anybody has any questions, please jump in. Mark, question for you here. As parents, we save for our children, and they may even get some of the product that you offer for our children. we've talked about that, and you're passionate about that. My question to you is, what is the earliest that you suggest, or you've seen actually a parent bringing a child into your office and doing it under them, like their name, their structure? Does that make sense? Versus me putting it away for them, versus them having their own stuff, teaching them to watch it, teaching them the growth path and pattern, and maybe even investing in certain things. Like me and you've talked about me getting my son involved and him investing in stocks of Nike or whatever that he likes, that he can watch, or penny stocks that he can grow. Talk to that, and what ages have you seen that, and what do you suggest for them kind of being, we monitor it, but them on their own, it's theirs?
Yeah, that's a fantastic question. I've literally seen this happen as early as age 0. And I'm not exaggerating when I say that, right? Because you can start to plan for your child's future even before they are cognitively aware of the fact that you're doing it, right? One of the things that state by state and the federal government allow are for you to create what are called custodial accounts, which basically means that I'm creating this account for my child, but my child is not of legal age. So I'm going to be the custodian or the overseer of that account, even though it's being held in my child's name, right? Often those are called UTMA or UGMA account. UTMA stands for Universal Transfer to Minors account. UGMA, Universal Guardians for Minors account. So you can have those types of setups. Oftentimes, for example, 529 plans, what's very popular for planning for your child's college. Those are set up in those types of arrangements. Or bank accounts are set up in those types of arrangements. Investment accounts are set up in those types of arrangements. So, I'll give you another example. Something that I've been asked more frequently about. How do I create a Roth IRA for my child? You can create a custodial Roth IRA for your child. And just so you know, a Roth IRA is a specialized retirement account that allows the money to grow tax-free for the rest of their lives. And then when they hit retirement, they can take it out tax-free for the rest of their lives. And there are some features along the way that, if necessary, resources can be pulled out of that Roth IRA on a tax-favored basis before retirement as well. So you can create what's called a custodial Roth IRA. Yes, it's being created for the child, but I'm going to be the one to help the child manage it. So don't feel like you have to wait until the child is 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years old to be able to somewhat understand this. You can do it before they even understand what a pacifier or a bib is. And then as they grow, mature, and you start to understand, okay, my child is a little bit starting to become responsible. I need to start teaching them these things. Then you can start introducing them to these concepts. Now, that said, I've had some clients that have said, you know what, I'm going to do all these plans for my kids, and I'm not going to tell them anything about it until I absolutely positively have to, which usually is around the age of 18 to 21, depending on the state that you live in, right? So and that's not even getting to us talking about trusts and estate planning. You can create trusts for your kids that have resources for them that they may or may not even know about until you finally pass away. And then you say, okay, I want to dictate from the grave how I want my children to manage these resources, right? So, I would say don't feel like you have to wait till a certain age. Start as early as you can, as often as you can, at whatever price point makes sense for you and your budget.
You brought up something that I kind of dealt with family-wise when my father passed and things that nature, when parents die. Let me ask you this about the trust that you just mentioned, right? Trust for your child, and you can dictate terms of that trust once you're gone, right? But do you also suggest someone having a will to also outline what you want done in said trust? The reason why I'm asking that is, I'm sure it depends on certain states, because let's say, for instance, that person passes and you have a wife, an ex-wife, an estranged wife, but still your wife on paper, or still same last name, or if you're in a common law state, that typically would go to the surviving spouse in certain instances. How is those trusts protected of that, or do you also suggest a will to accompany that? Because a lot of times in our community, we don't die with wills. I know you're not an attorney, but I'm sure you've seen instances like that. What do you speak to on that?
Sure. So I always say that a will and a trust are complementary pieces. Typically, you don't want to have one without the other, although I guess technically you can. But here's how and again, to your point, I'm not an attorney, so I'm not going to pretend like I'm giving legal specific advice, but I'll give you my perspective on it as to how I've seen it play out, right?
Right.
So the way that I explain it is this: a will dictate where your assets go, but it cannot determine what is done with those assets when they get there. I'll say it again. A will determine where your assets go, but it doesn't determine what happens with those assets once they get there. So you can say, hey, I want in my will my child to receive my house when I pass away. You have zero control over once that child gets that house, if they rent it out, if they sell it, if they turn it into a slum, if they like, you have zero control over it after that, right? They can Airbnb, they can do whatever it is that they want with it, right? A trust, on the other hand, if you have that dovetail with the will determines where those resources go. The trust, since technically those resources are being set into the trust, will then dictate the parameters with which that asset can be used. Because now you can say, okay, I want my asset to go into, let's stick with the house situation, right? I want my house to go into this trust for the benefit of my son. However, the trust can stipulate, the son has to live there for 4.5 years or 5 years until that son gets out of college. And then once that son has graduated, they have the option to where they can either sell the house or rent it out. Or you might say, hey, you know what? I want them to turn this into an income stream for X amount of years until they're self-sustaining. Okay, so 4.5 to 5 years to get them through college, another 4.5 to 5 years until they're on their feet. Let them rent out the house. Okay, and then at the end of that 10-year period, the trust can then determine if they want to sell the house or if they want to keep renting it out. Like, the trust can dictate far more specific terms once you're gone than a will can. So again, the will determines where the resources go. The trust determines how those resources then utilize thereafter.
Man, you just dropped the seed. Like, I didn't know that. Like, I didn't know that a trust was that powerful. I thought the opposite. I thought a will could dictate X, Y, Z where it goes. Say for like, so in a trust, I can dictate you have to be 30 years old. You got to have a credit score of 750 or above before you, like, I can dictate all that in a trust versus a will. I thought that was vice versa.
Nope, it's the exact opposite. It's the exact opposite. Wow. A will sends it there. A trust determines what happens once it gets there.
Man, you just, wow. All right, we got a comment that just speaks to what we just said.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead and look through that. Let me see. Miss Chandra, she just went through. Can you see that on your side?
I cannot. Can you read it off to me?
Sandra just said she just went through this with her dad's estate. Nightmare in probate court. Please set up a trust.
Yes, absolutely. And by the way, again, even when we're talking about probate, right? A will helps take care of so much of that. That's why I tell everybody, if you have nothing else, please at least have a will in place. Because to her point, if there is no will and there is no trust, then everything that you leave behind then goes into what's called probate. And that basically means that now the state can dictate all of the terms of everything that happens with everything that you just left behind. And typically the way that probate court works is that the court is going to say, okay, before we send this to the family, what debts did this person have? What are the creditors that this person owed? If there's not enough cash to be able to satisfy all of these outstanding debts, how do we sell off some of these resources to pay down these debts? And so you may have died with an estate like this, but the probate determines that once we paid off all the creditors, this is what actually goes to the family in the aftermath. So again, you want to have that will in place. If you can afford it, go ahead and get that trust in place, because that helps you bypass the state so that you can actually dictate where those resources go and then how those resources utilized, going toward the family, then towards, the state determining all of that for you. So yes, I appreciate that woman sharing that. And by the way, let me also say this. This is a lesson that I don't care how poor you are or how rich you are, it impacts you. Let me give you a perfect example, right? So one of the things that happened even as of recently, when Aretha Franklin passed away, her entire estate was topsy-turvy because a lot of that had to go to probate because, unfortunately, let's just call it what it is. Aretha Franklin grew up in an era where she even said she didn't trust banks. She didn't trust financial institutions. She didn't trust attorneys. She didn't trust a whole lot of people. So she was basically cash and carry, and kept a whole lot of money either on her person, in her pocket, on her purse, or in her mattress, right?
Wow.
So when she died, there were millions of dollars in cash, assets, properties, et cetera, but there was nothing documented as far as what to do with it. So her estate ended up landing in probate. It's only recently, and when I say recently, I mean like this past week, because I just read an article about it that said that her sons were awarded some of her like real estate properties because they just so happened to find some will that I think that she like wrote out or something like that, and it happened to be tucked underneath like a cushion in one of her old couches. So again,
Right. And that's
I don't care how poor you are or how rich you
Yes.
are. It is amazing how just having that documented piece of paper called a will, I would argue she should have had a whole bunch of trust and stuff on top of that.
Trust
But
the story.
it is what it is.
And it's
right?
not, that's the thing that we have to get past. It's not like our parents or our grandparents didn't want to. They didn't have the education. They
Right.
didn't, they would have. They didn't have the education because whether to do, nobody wanted to pour it into us, or we didn't trust the government, which that's a whole nother story about things that we've gone through. But those days, we can't use those as excuses anymore. That's
Agreed.
and I remember the same thing with when James Brown died. Same thing.
Same thing.
Same thing.
By the way, does Aretha Franklin, James Brown, the Prince estate? Oh, the Prince estate is a nightmare situation for a lot of these same reasons that we're talking about.
But see, that's the thing. So even Prince, just for me, I'm just talking from my standpoint. Aretha Franklin, James Brown, old school. We looked at, or me, I looked at Prince as such a different person, different stature, a high esteem. Not that they weren't high esteem, but you seem like he was more like, you know what I'm saying, like above the fray mentally. And he had the same issues, the same stuff. He's a black man from Indianapolis, or the like, same issues. Like I didn't even know that he had those. Yeah, that's wild to me.
Yeah, it's amazing how someone who has so much insight into the music industry and contracts and negotiations and stuff like that, he was so focused on that on his professional career, but he didn't take the time to focus on that on his personal career, as I would say it that way. He had all his I's, dotted and T's crossed on the professional side, once he finally left Warner Brothers, but he didn't apply that to his personal life. And so, his estate there are millions of dollars that have been lost in his estate simply because he didn't have a will and he didn't have a trust.
Wow. So Sandra also followed up her comment by saying she had to fill in a blank template, which proved to be problematic in probate court. She says pay to get an actual will from an attorney and a trust.
Yes. Thank you, man, for saying that. I'm so glad that she's bringing this up, because this is a conversation that I had to have with somebody that is close to me recently. And what I share with her is that, Rashid, you can understand this because you're in the car business. You get what you pay for, right?
Oh, yeah.
You get what you pay for. Sometimes you have to pay the premium to get a better result, right?
Yes.
You have to pay the premium to get a better result. As she just shared, filling out some blank form, guess what? That's free. You can download that off the internet. You can fill that out and say, hey, this is my will. But you know what? If the state wants to contest that, they can do so. Why? Because you went the free route rather than going with somebody who you may have had to have paid a few $100 or a few $1,000s to get the paperwork right, like make sure that the wording is correct, get it officially filed with the state, et cetera, in order to make sure that your estate is properly planned for. So estate planning is literally one of those things where I tell everybody, yes, you can do some of your estate planning, for free online. What's that? LegalZoom.com or whatever that is. That's not an endorsement, right? But can you do something off of LegalZoom.com? Yeah, you can. Do we know specifically that what you download off of LegalZoom.com applies to your unique situation in your unique state? We don't know that. So get with an attorney that can help you get that taken care of. I also throw another layer on there. Again, not only do you get what you pay for, but not all estate planning attorneys are created equal. I just call it what it is, right? There are, let me give you an example. There are certain doctors that you will or will not go to, right? You can, to a certain degree, if you want to just get a regular checkup, you can go to the free clinic, and that's fine. There's no shame to that, because every community needs to be served. But if you need heart surgery, you're probably not going to want to go to the free clinic to do that.
No,
Is that, would you say that's a fair assessment?
Yeah, fair
Right.
assessment.
So it's the same thing when you're talking about your estate planning. Can you go to somebody that is less expensive or less experienced? You absolutely can. But to the extent that you're willing to spend that extra dollar with someone who has been there, done that, knows the tax code, knows the state code, knows these rules and whatnot, and knows how to specifically word things, it works out far more in your favor. So again, estate planning is one of those things that you do not want to cheap out on. Do as much as you can relative. You always hear me say this: do as best as you can relative to your budget. Do as best as you can relative to your budget. So yes, I absolutely agree with her, and I'm so glad that she shared that.
Wow. Yeah, that was a great point. Great point. And Darlene Noel said, Black people need to hear this. That's right. Oh, that's right. It's not negative. It's not a negative when we talk about this.
Right. This ain't about being negative. We just got to deal with life and what it is, man. This is just the real, right? And yes, and again, we said before, we want to help and reach everybody. But yeah, Black people are the ones specifically that are behind the 8 ball on a lot of this stuff. So yes, we tailor make this to a Black audience. We want to help everybody, but we definitely want to help our people because we're the ones that need to play a little bit of catch up, so to speak.
Yeah.
Most of it through no fault of our own. It just is what it is.
Yeah. Wow. What a way to end it, man. We're right at like an hour and 1 minute. Oh, man, perfect. You dropped some jewels tonight, brother. Like, wow, I appreciate it. What a way to close it out. Man, you've been great. If there's any last questions or comments, go throw those in. I'm just going to give Mark his flowers real quick. Mark, I want to thank you so much, man. You've been not only a confidant, a friend, a leader, and been guiding me through this. It's been a tumultuous process for me these last few months of 2023, but I want to make sure we got this final episode in before this year ends, because a new year's coming and a new year of, a new growth, a new being, a new awakening. We're going to leave the old and negative in the past and move forward with the tools that I need to move forward in life and in financially. So thank you so much, man. If you don't know, again, Mark is a dynamic financial and wealth planner with Northwestern Mutual. He can help you. Reach out to this brother. If he can't help you in your state or your city, he will lead you in the right direction. So please provide your email, your contact, your social, whatever you want to provide to people to reach out to you.
Yep. And matter of fact, I'm actually about to throw that on the screen momentarily. Let me throw that back up 1 second. And
somebody said, Vito Crown said, no, we want more. I want more. Mark got his family. Mark had to jump off of a family event tonight to finish this up. So I'm not going to hold Mark any more than I have to. But we'll catch up a little bit, family, when Mark jumps off. But go ahead, Mark.
Yep. So here's my contact information. If you need me, please email me, shoot me a text, shoot me a phone call. My office number is 713-333-4686. Again, office is 713-333-4686. If you want to reach my work cell, you can reach my work cell at 607-280-7500. Again, that's 607-280-7500. And if you want to reach me via email, Mark, MARK, .Haywood, HAYWOOD @NM, as in Northwestern Mutual.com. That's Mark.Haywood @NM, as in Northwestern Mutual.com. You can also reach me on social media. I'm available on Facebook, S.MarkHaywood II. You can also reach me on Instagram, same thing. You can also reach me on LinkedIn, exact same thing. Again, I'm here to help. It's a blessing for me to be a blessing to others. I appreciate Rashid inviting me to share this information with you. I hope you found it helpful. And if there's anything else I can do to help, I'm more than willing to do so.
Well, man, appreciate you. And then tell everybody where you went to college and got your degrees from. And you may, at the end, you may be able to mention your fraternity if you want to.
Okay, so I did undergrad at Cornell University, upstate New York. So, part of those Ivy League bros, and I say Ivy League bros because, as he said, I am a member of Phi Beta Sigma Fraternity Incorporated. So, Blue Phi, shout out to the Confident Kappa chapter of Phi Beta Sigma at Cornell University, those Ivy League bros.
My man. Well, man, thank you so much, Mark. You've been a pleasure and a blessing, man. And me and you, our work is not done. And if in 24, if I'll see a need to bring you back on, man, for some spot stuff to jump on, man, and have a conversation as we go into the new future of Ages and Stages, and going forward in 2024. So thanks
Yes,
again, brother. I love you, man. I appreciate you, and I'll be in touch soon. And we gotta keep going, man. Thank you so
God
much,
bless
man.
you, brother. Look forward to being
Thank
in
you.
touch.
Thank you, man. Thank you so much.
Yes,
All
sir.
right, Mark. Yep, my man, Mark. Mark is a dynamic brother. Thank you so much, Mark. Mark is great, man. So anyway,